Secrets are getting revealed by technology. In August of 2023, after giving a presentation on the Julia Robinson Mathematics Festival to a lot of kids, some of whom were coughing and sniffling, it was a conference that was organized by kids, I tested positive for COVID. When I tested positive, I went to bed and brought my computer to bed with me. I remembered that I'd gotten a message from 23andMe telling me that I had new relatives. So I checked for new relatives, and this is what I found. I found, in case you can't read this, that I had a half-brother. I was astonished. I had never been told about this half-brother. I had grown up with one sister, one sibling, an older sister, so I immediately told my sister. And she logged into her 23andMe account, and she found that she had an uncle. So did I have a half-brother or an uncle? Well, I looked at some of the data, and in case you can't read it, I matched with my half-brother 26.81. I shared DNA with him, and she matched 25.11 or 11. And so I thought probably he was my half-brother, and he was her half-brother as well. But which parent did I share parents with Bill? Was it my mother or my father? So, like many people, I thought maybe it was my father. And he just didn't know. Well, adoptions were closed when Bill was adopted, but they opened up in 2020. So Bill learned that he shared a birth mother with me, and he found her obituary. But he chose not to contact us for fear that we didn't know about his existence. And we may have been stunned. And I think we would have been stunned. It was 2017. And I did have my mother's resume, and in fact, I brought it with me in case anybody wants to look at it. I produced a book when my mother passed away about her. And my mother went to Japan, and she was living in Japan. She worked for the Red Cross, and she was interested in meeting a man in 1946. And she seems to have met a man, as far as we can tell. Bill was told that he was adopted from the Louise Wise Adoption Agency. And I don't know whether that rings a bell with any of you, but if you've seen the documentary, Three Identical Strangers, that was the adoption agency in that. Now, if you haven't seen the film, one boy is going to college, he goes 1 year, leaves, a bunch of his friends know he's left, another person comes, people start coming up to this person who's never been to the college before and start hugging him and saying, so glad you're back, but he's never been there before. And then somebody comes up to him and says, what's your birthday? And he realizes he's a twin. They get somebody from a newspaper to write an article about how they found each other. Somebody else sees the article who looks exactly like them, and there's three triplets who never knew about each other. And the film is about that. Okay. So anyway, since my mother was not alive, my sister and I went around asking friends and family if anybody knew about her pregnancy. None of them did. So I turned to the internet. I looked up the adoption agency, I looked up the time period, and I found that there were several books written about this period of time and about unwed mothers having babies. And I found these books really, really helpful to understand probably the mentality of my mother at the time. And I also looked at a book called The Turnaway Study, in which some women got abortions and some women were turned away because they went to abortion clinics past the date that the abortion clinic would give an abortion. And they did a study. So they went to 30 abortion clinics, studied 1,000 women, and followed them for 5 years. Diana Foster Green did this, or Diana Green Foster, did this because politicians and judges were saying that women felt bad about getting abortions. And she wanted to find out. She's a demographer and did this study. So here are some of the results of her study. I thought I'd put in some numbers. And I underlined what my mother probably felt. It wasn't the right time for a baby. She wasn't married at the time, and in fact, the man, she got pregnant in Japan, we found out, and she tried to contact the man, and he didn't follow up with her. So these were some of the reasons she wasn't emotionally prepared. And in fact, Bill was told about her and her parents, and I applied to get information about the adoption, and I was told about him and his parents, when he was a baby. And what he was told was my mother told her parents about the pregnancy, and they reacted in a hostile and unaccepting way, and she suffered from depression. And that was, a lot of people suffered from depression. Anyway, he was born 6 years before my parents met. I'm fortunate to have met my half-brother before he passed away at the end of the year. My experience is not uncommon. A lot of people are discovering relatives, and there's a growing interest in genetic genealogy. And now for a puzzle. What were the ages of Bill, my sister, and me at the end of 2023? The product of our ages is 346,256. Okay, so copy down that number. Okay? And there's probably no time for questions, but you can come up to me afterwards if you want to talk to me. But unlike most people, I am very thankful that I got COVID. If I hadn't gotten COVID, I might not have met my half-brother. And so I'm one of the few people that is delighted to have gotten COVID. And I recovered quickly. After 4 days, I tested negative.